Hi, my name's JC Burke, which stands for Jane Catherine Burke. I'm the author of the novel The Story of Tom Brennan. It was strange when I found out that Tom was going to be on the high school certificate list under the module of Into the World, because it's strange for an author to have to look at their novel I guess in a way where you're deconstructing it the way you would in English class, because when you write a novel, you don't think of it like that. You're just thinking about telling a story. You're not purposely trying to use the river as some sort of metaphor. It's just really a story that you're telling. So I found out that it was Into the World, and I was freaking out about how I was going to present this novel at my very first school visit to students who were studying it for the high school certificate. And then I remembered something. I remembered something that I'd seen when I was editing about the fourth draft of the book. And straight away, I realised that I knew exactly how to present this module of Into the World, and why this whole thing of into a new world, transitioning into a new place, was so perfect for Tom Brennan. So this is my story. When I was 10 years old, it was Anzac Day, and there was a very long hallway that led to my parents' bedroom. And I was walking down the hallway, and I was going to a birthday party that day. And I was very competitive about musical chairs. And I actually remember thinking about, were they going to have musical chairs at the party? And that if they were, I hoped they used chairs and not cushions. Now, the strange thing is about this day is that it's probably one of the very earliest memories I have, and it's such a clear memory. It's a memory where I remember the light, I remember objects in the room, and more importantly, I remember exactly what I was thinking. And I was this 10-year-old kid walking down the hallway thinking about musical chairs. Then I turned the corner and walked into my mother's room. And I've got this snapshot of what the room looked like. The way the light was coming through the window, that kind of early autumn sun that's a little muted. I remember exactly what my mum was wearing. I remember there was a chair and there was a suitcase on the chair. And my mum was lost in this moment, and she had no idea that one of her kids was standing at the door. And I just saw her as this kid, and she's packing a suitcase. So, like a kid would, I said, "Mum, why are you packing a bag? I didn't know you were going away on a holiday." And she said, "I'm not. I've got cancer." Now, in those days, that was the early 70s, and in those days, cancer was a very, very different situation, and there was no such thing as chemotherapy. And straight away, I understood, as this very young kid, that my mum was going to get very sick and that she was going to die. And I remember the conversation I had with myself. I referred to myself in the third person. I had this panicked dialogue in my head, and I remember saying to myself, Jane Burke doesn't have a sick mother. Jane Burke doesn't have a dead mother. I have a mother, I have a father. And I remember this very, very clearly, and the way it was almost like I was looking down at myself in the third person. Now, I actually saw a representation of that in the story of Tom Brennan. I had absolutely no idea that part of my life had slipped out onto the page, because when you write, you're not you. You become the character that's telling the story. But I remembered as I was editing about the fourth draft that I saw this little tiny paragraph on page 76, and I thought, wow, that's my life. And the interesting thing about this paragraph on page 76 is that it's one of the most important parts in the whole novel in terms of it being into the world, because it is that moment, exactly like me, when Tom realises his world and his life, the way he knows it, is about to change forever, and he is going to make a transition and move into a whole new world. There were probably two things that alerted me to this paragraph. because I really did just stumble over it. I had read this paragraph, I'd edited it, I'd rewritten it over and over, and yet I had never, ever seen this aspect of my own life in it. But there were two things that alerted me to it this day. One is the way I describe what Tom is doing. There's that same kind of optical comparison, like the long hallway turning the corner, the long dirt track, then turning the corner. And the other thing that made me think of it was that Tom Brennan actually refers to himself in the third person too, as Tom Brennan. So here is what I would say is the very important turning point of the novel, where Tom realises that his world as he knew it is about to change forever. As Snorter steered the statesman around that last bend, I was still me. Tom Brennan, year 11, middle child, happy, free, no fuss type of bloke. Didn't think about much except my mates and footy. But as we turned the corner and the headlights shone on Daniel's blue Falcon, up on its side against a tree, the front tyre still spinning, everything I thought I knew about who I was and who the Brennans were changed forever. I think the really important parts of the novel, and there's a few of them, it's when Tom does refer to himself in the third person. And it's almost like he's standing back and looking at his life and looking at where he's come, where he's up to now. It's like he's kind of taking stock of how this whole journey is going. And the prologue is one. The very, very last sentence of the book is one as well, where he refers to himself in the third person. And also on page 261, it's that moment where he knows that he can get comfortable in his world. Kylie spilt the secret, nothing's happened, and he actually realises that life in Cog Hill might be different, but different doesn't necessarily mean bad. And it's a very important moment when he actually decides that he can't hold on to all the guilt. And he says, "When I was with Chrissy, I was me again. Simple Tom Brennan. No ties, no debt, no guilt, no bad thoughts. Just me, the way I'd always known myself. Through all the shit, I really hadn't had a moment to pinpoint what I missed the most. Was it the Billy and my mates? Was it Mum not being Mum, or Finn, Daniel and me in the way we used to be? But now I knew what I missed the most. I missed me, Tom Brennan, and that's why now I could smile, because I could see that he was coming back." So good luck with the high school certificate for those of you that are studying the story of Tom Brennan. I really wish you luck with it. And I always answer any emails, questions that you have when you're studying the novel. You can find me on my JC Burke Facebook page, my JC Burke website. And also remember, I love coming to the schools and actually meeting you guys and talking to you guys in person about the novel and how I wrote the story of Tom Brennan and the way it fits into the HSC module.